Hello everyone and welcome back to a bonus video. Since we've been posting primarily Genesis content on the channel lately, I figured it behooves me to react to the points update, and I really just want to get my thoughts out either way on this one. So without further ado, let's get started. So, points update. This is the first one after our first big YCS, and there was a lot of chatter about it, and I would consider this the most important points update so far, because this is the one after they've gotten a whole bunch of data. So, keep that in mind as we're going forward. So, Killer Tune, I will never call it this name. Killer Tune got hit pretty substantially. It was prior to this exactly 40 points as an engine. It has gone up to 76 if you want to play everything at the same ratio it was, which the biggest issue with this deck is just the fact that they get to play a bunch of generic hand traps with auxiliary synergies, and they can't really afford a ton of those anymore. For just as a point here, they were the deck playing Ash Blossom at 15 points, which is absolutely crazy that they were doing that because they just had the points to do it and it had synergy. The deck is no longer playing Ash Blossom, and they probably can't fit quite as much non-engine, especially with some of the hits further down in the list. But I am afraid that this is probably still the best deck in the format. Like, 36 points onto it is something. I don't think it's enough, if I'm being completely honest. This deck's crazy right now, y'all. Exo Sisters got one thing unhit and one thing hit. This equates to, if you're maxing out on everything, they lose 6 points. They weren't playing the full play set of packs before. They have to play the full play set of Betrayal. That card is way too good not to. Maybe they max out on both now and just take the 6 point hit. I'm not sure. I haven't. It's a deck I own. I haven't really messed with a whole bunch yet. Zaborg to 100's good. That was just one of the versions of Monarchs. Monarchs is definitely one of the best decks in Genesis. I would consider it. We'll get to that in a second. But the Zaborg version was incredibly frustrating. In particular, I don't know. Every version of Monarchs is very frustrating in Genesis, but this is one that was very frustrating, and so seeing it get hit is good. Soul Exchange and Steel Stringed Sacrifice were for the other version of Monarchs. They don't care. This is not enough to stop Handwrit Monarch. Handwrit Monarch is going to be the first or second best deck in the format, and there's no other hits to them, so this is crazy. Like, that's a severe oversight in my opinion. Vision to 10 is good. We don't Radiant Typhoon was still one of the best decks in the format. This is a hit that hits Typhoon itself very, very hard and stops other decks that were playing Vision just as a draw engine, thinking like Pearly, from doing so, but it doesn't stop you from playing 3 Axis, which is already like hit to all hell in the format, because you just swap out the Visions for a different card that gets you 3 more MSTs anyway. So it's not a huge deal for me personally, but I do like to see Radiant Typhoon pure being hit. I don't know that necessarily we needed to hit the draw engine so hard, but it's fine. This is fine. Then we've got the Archmage and Medius stuff. The Archmage was a very good deck with visible weaknesses, so I think that it's good that they didn't hit them ridiculously hard. I think Medius himself should have some amount of points, and Thea Realized by extension should have some amount of points, because Doom Z is quite good right now. Not like the standout, but it will get infinitely better when we get our next set, because they get an incredible wave of support with that. So the problem I have here is that they have just pointed Elf Notes, which is a bad deck in the format. It's like got weaknesses. Maybe people use it as an engine. It's just not amazing. More when they already had to buy in at 15 to 30 points. That's really rough, because Elf Notes was the redheaded stepchild of the Medius archetypes in the first place, and they just got they now have the most points of any of the Medius archetypes, I believe. I don't remember what Nerve is at. I think she's only like 10, which means that yeah, now they have the most of anyone, and that's real sad. Is the worst of the three. So this hit sucks for Elf Notes and is very good to do to Doomsy, but I maybe they should have just hit Doomsy and Archmage separately. I don't know. Or they should have just dropped the Elf Note Power Patron to 0 and done this, and that would have been perfectly okay as well. I don't hate the change. I don't love it. It's to Draco Tail. This is a deck that has continuously adapted to whatever you throw at it and stuck around in the format in some form. I think this might finally box it out. Like, this is 30 on Rahu on top of everything they already had, might just be enough to kill it. And I say good riddance if we're being honest. Sylvie to 5 is a tax on White Forest. White Forest is one of the better decks in the format. One of the it's like top 10. It consistently shows up. I play it a lot. So pointing Sylvie at 5 means that you might just play 3 Astalars if you're playing a pure build as your normal summon of choice, and then you're only paying 5. Or maybe you'll just take the hit and pay the 40, because the only pointed card in White Forest prior to this for like pure White Forest was Diabell at 25. So now it costs you 40 to play the engine. That's still fine, especially considering we're going to see later that they did hit a bunch of board breakers down, spell-based board breakers. So like you save some points there maybe. Then we've got something that annoys me. They hit Punk by another 15 points. The Psychic Punk deck is quite good, but if you're thinking about it, like, pure Punk is quite bad. I don't think it really needed this. This is frustrating to me. It was at 30 points already, is a deck that is incredibly normal summon reliant, that doesn't really have good extension. It does some powerful things for sure, and it can draw into hand traps, and that can't be underestimated, but I think 30 was like right where it needed to be. I don't. If you look at the top 32 from the YCS, there were 2 people playing Punk, one on Gold Pride, one on the Psychic variant, and I don't think that's a bad place for the deck to be. I think an extra 15 was uncalled for here. Eh, eh. eh. Then we've got a block full of just Regenesis stuff. I haven't seen a whole lot of Regenesis, but I know that people were playing it in like Vanquish Soul without Regenesis itself. Now the deck is a lot more playable, but because Regenesis as a card is an important card as a deck, but not as a package, the package is a lot less playable. Time will tell how much any of this actually matters. This can be considered less of a hit to Regenesis and more of a hit to Vanquish Soul. Then we've got some hand traps getting adjustments. Ghost Mourner, Ghost Ogre going up a little bit, Ghost Bell going up a little bit. This is all okay. Same with Veiler, honestly. I'm not sure that we need to be hitting these just because of a high play rate, because these cards, I would argue, 1-for-1 hand trap based interaction is where we want the format's interaction to be. So these cards seeing a high play rate was kind of indicative of a healthy format, in my opinion. These being the ones that you go to if you've got some extra points and you want to play hand traps was a good thing. Ash Blossom, I don't think needed to go to 20. I don't consider this card when I'm doing deck building. I don't think this is worth playing. The only decks that were doing that were Doomsy and Killer Tune, because those 2 decks had way too few points associated with them as good modern playable Yu-Gi-Oh decks. This card was out probably for both of those already, just with their own points being increased. Ash didn't need to also take a bullet. It probably could have come down a little bit. So that one's questionable to me. Droll and Lockbird to 20, I want this card at 100. This is a floodgate. Like, you can't convince me otherwise. This is a floodgate that should not be in this format, and we're going to talk more about that later. This whole section is weird to me. DD Crota 1 is fine. That boxes out 100-point engines from playing free non-engine, which I think is maybe a good place to be. Cyclone to 1, same thing. Dark Ruler to 2, same thing. Mistaken Arrest to 10 needed to happen. This is not a card that should be seeing play. Again, this is a Floodgate, and I think it's a worse one than Droll, so at 10 maybe it doesn't see play. Hopefully. Hopefully it's gone. Ultimate to Slayer to 1 looks weird, but then you notice that Malong, Garura, and Aggregator are all to 4. So the common Ultimate Slayer targets got pointed. I fucking hate how they did this. I think Ultimate Slayer needed points, for sure, 100%. This card needed to go. Or didn't need to go. I think it's perfectly acceptable, but it was way above the curve for something that was free. This card should have been 5 per. And these should have been 0. Because think about it. What are they doing with this change? They have hit Ultimate Slayer. Sure, they've put Ultimate Slayer to 15 because you're playing 1 copy of each of these and 3 on Ultimate Slayer. But what they've also done is any deck that plays Malong, which are not good decks, these are things like Virtual World plays Malong, just got taxed for no reason. Anyone playing Super Poly just got taxed for no reason. I would play Garura as an actual fusion targets in certain decks, like zombies and things like that. That just got taxed for no reason. Why did we do this? Why did we hit cards that might be useful in other worse strategies in order to hit Ultimate Slayer? Why not just hit Ultimate Slayer itself? This was crazy. I hate this. Then we've got a section I actually kind of like. Book of Eclipse, Book of Moon down pretty significantly. That's buffs to Ninja, and I think Book of Moon is neat in certain decks that I would like to see these cards more playable. Like, they see play in decks that are fair and interesting. Cool with it. Darkhold to 1 is kind of interesting. I think it's a 3 of in every deck now that has any spare points. I was already playing this whenever I had like 3 or 6 points extra. This was my go-to because at 3 Darkhold is very good. I think at 1 it's incredible. It's a staple. Like it's in everything. So look forward to this going back up on the next list. Raigeki down, I don't think matters. As long as Darkhold is cheaper, I'm playing Darkhold over Raigeki, and because they hit anything that could be considered a going second deck, you're not running both of these. Karma Cannon down, again, that's a buff to ninjas, that's a buff to Labyrinth, it's a buff to a lot of decks. I think this card down is the wrong way to go about buffing those decks. I think this card should probably be 5, because this is an individual card is incredibly powerful, and they should be reducing the cost of Labyrinth and decks that they want to be playing this card instead of reducing this card itself. Because at 3, I am now considering this a 3 of in every sideboard for going first. It's like powerful enough that if my deck can survive like getting its board booked, maybe I've used all of my interaction already and then I book my board, like this is now a possible playable 3 of in the sideboard of every deck for going first, in my opinion. Evenly down, I think, is okay. 7 feels like about where it should be. This is a card I was already considering if I want a really good board breaker, and I think it's worse in this format than in Advanced because the battle phase matters a lot more in this format than in Advanced, in my opinion. So it going down a little bit's fine. Imperm down by 1 is insulting, but I was already kind of considering Imperm depending on the deck, and like trap-based decks, Odeon, for example. I think it should have gone down to 10, and that would be where it's healthy. Going any of these 1-point adjustments on something that was already pretty high is funky to me for some reason. Pank down is really cool. Pank is discount Fenrir. It is like, it to me is a mascot for the power level that I want this kind of card to be in this format. And so, like, it going from 10 down to 5 is good for me. I think I will pay 15 for a playset of Pankratops. I would consider 30 for a playset of it in certain decks, specifically Argo Stars. At 15, I think I consider it in more decks. Like, it's a pretty good card. Uninterrupted or interrupted Kaiju Slumber down to 10 is a little bit scary because that is just a Darkhold or a Raigeki that has upside for certain decks, but I don't think it's bad. I think this is fine. Meowls could be 0 and it would see very little play. It'd be a sideboard card. Perulian a 9's whatever. I'm not going to play it still. I'd still be playing Fulos if I was playing anything. Heavy Storm to 6, Duster to 9, Lightning Storm to 12. I'm okay with this. I think this is healthy. The one thing that people have escaped in this format is mass back row removal, and I think having more reasonably costed, but still costed, back row removal is a good thing for the format. I'm okay with these cards being at these exact numbers, because I would consider a playset of Harpy's Featherstorm for 18, Heavy Storm for 18. I don't know that I would still be considering these other ones, but I'll play Heavy Storms at 6, sure. Change of Heart, Snatch, Steel Monster Reborn, these could be 0, and I think they would see little to no play. Like, Monster Reborn might see play in particular niche decks, but eh. Then we get to the section that pisses me off. This is the section of cards that are not seeing play or are seeing reduced amounts of play that they want to see more. Dragonic Diagram to 15, cool, whatever, I don't care. Union Hanger to 15, no one's playing ABC, it's a bad deck. Hecka Hands to 0, that's fine. Like, this is a slight buff for the Chimera Hecka Hands deck that is not amazing right now because it's so heavily pointed, but it's pretty okay. This is a deck I would be okay with seeing in the format at lower point totals. This is a small reduction to their point totals, very small. Stratos to 0 is fine, Hero is fine. Volcanics and Kieran down a little bit is okay. That gives Fire King more points to work with, and at the very start of the format, Fire King's emerged as one of the best decks. We quickly realized it's not, but it is a good and playable deck that a lot of people like, and I think reducing the points just a little bit here and there is okay. Gigantic Sprite does nothing because Sprite is bad without its links, as who cares. Chi down, I think Sword Soul could be a lot cheaper than it is even with this reduction, and it would maybe see fringe play. This is a cool deck, and I think it's like the power level we want in Genesys. It's just so heavily costed right now that it's still not really playable. Same with Voiceless Voice. Without the ability to play a Herald of the Arclight, Voiceless Voice has so few starters, even with this reduction, that I don't know that I'm considering it. It's a deck I like, and I don't know that I'm still considering it, even with 15 more points, because they are so light on starters. And to be fair, this isn't necessarily a Genesis issue. This is a ritual decks have lost the best piece of support they had in every format, and they have not replaced it with anything good issue. We need better generic ritual support for this to work. Rhoda and Fossil Dig to 33 from 35 is insulting. I am personally insulted by this. These are cards that should cost 10. In my opinion, you should be choosing between one hand trap and one piece of consistency for your deck. They were like, oh, cool, the reason that these cards aren't seeing play is you can't play a play set of them. Got it. That's what people want. No one's going to touch these. These will not be touched. E-Telly is still almost unconsiderable. Maybe you play the 1 because you can search it in Psychic Punk. It's not... No, none of the Rhodas are still playable. You can't. It's just... Sorry. It doesn't work that way. Misk to 67, I see what they did. They were like, Fossil Dig's 33. You can now play one Fossil Dig and one Misk. It's just swingy. I think Misk should be 100. This card is, and people are going to be mad at me for that because people like dinosaurs. I don't care. Misk is not an okay card. Anything that says you cannot interact with me for the rest of the turn is not an okay card. This should be 100. And then Fossil Dig should be maybe 10, if that. Dragon Rulers down by a couple points each. Cool. I don't know. I don't know that people are playing Dragon Rulers still. My biggest issue, Melody is a garbage card, and it's really funny that it's pointed at all. That's all I'll say about that. My biggest issue with the entire list is that this section is not 3 times this length. Where's Labyrinth? People are basically unable to play that. And I don't even like Labyrinth, but that's just a deck that still can't be played really at all because it's so heavily pointed. So why are the points not coming down? Um, why does Virtual World still have 3 points on Lulu? Why God, what else do I play that I want to play? Voiceless Voice could come down more. There's a bunch of archetypes that are still. Oh yeah, Chimera. Chimera is one that could come down significantly more than the 5 for Gygus because they were playing it at 1 of, and most lists weren't even playing Xeno because it's not worth the 10. It could come down a good bit more. So Memento is unplayable right now with its points, and while again I don't think it's a deck that is that great and shouldn't be unpointed, why are we not lowering the points on more engines that are just completely pointless or completely unplayable right now? This is crazy to me. This is the worst part of the entire list to me, is that we are not making decks that are way too heavily pointed on speculation playable. Then we go down, we've got Dark Magician of Destruction to 15, Gaze of Timaeus to 1. This is to basically say, like, tap people on the back of the hand and say, don't play this as a small engine. That's fine by me. Yeah, I don't know, not much to say. They took McConko out back and shot it after I bought my cards. So, like, this is not a playable deck now because Uzuhime, you could play at 1 for 18. Shinbu to 18 is 3. Like, the deck is in such a situation where you now have a maximum of like 10, 11 starters in a deck that desperately needs multiple starters in their opening hand because they are always playing into an established board. So the fact that they didn't say anything and just gutted a deck because some people don't like the deck, that makes me lose more faith in this format than anything else. Sandwich Data 3 in this section is kind of weird. It should be grouped into this. This could be called the quit trying to deep draw section. Decks that were still playing Exodia, decks that just like were trying to thin the deck with Toon Table of Contents and engage, like they're just hitting all this stuff. Quit trying to deep draw, quit trying to not play the game, y'all. I'm not sure what Raiders Knight to 80 is meant to box out. The only thing I've found that this deck does is it makes a Rising Rebellion Falcon in anything that can put 2/4s together, which, like, maybe that's what it is? I don't know. Utopia Double, maybe just because it enables OTKs too easily. These two are weird to me. I'm not sure what they're boxing out. Machinex, like, again, I'm not sure what the point is here, but I prefer Gimmick Puppet to not be playable, so I don't really care. Eradicator Warlock is because it was just, like, a really oppressive piece of interaction that you could get off of the Dark Magician of Destruction package that they wanted to knock out. And that's it. And that's it. We're missing every single Floodgate. Dimension Fissure's not on here. They dropped roll instead of raising it more. Shifter's still at 10 for some reason. Different Dimension Ground is unpointed. Mischief of the Gnomes is unpointed. Why? 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 Yeah, so all of the stupid ass floodgates everyone's decided to start playing are still free or low points. Don't know why. Couldn't explain that to you. Stupidest decision. As well as the fact that the top decks did not change. Killer Tune is going to be at the top still. Doomsy is going to be at the top still. Already looking at this, all you do is change some of your hand traps around. Oh no, we can't play Ash Blossom anymore. We'll play other hand traps. The Monarch is still going to be a top deck, maybe the best deck now because they got hit less than those other two. And yet we're hitting rogue decks and we're not unpointing decks that are worse than those three, and we're not hitting the floodgates that are everywhere. I'm not particularly happy about this one. There's good points. Like, I like This section, for the most part, this is perfectly okay. This is insulting because this doesn't change the playability of any of these decks. Like, cool, this is a minor buff to this deck, minor buff to Heroes, minor buff to Fire King. None of these decks became good or even like went from tier 3 to tier 2 because of this. Like, nothing has changed because of this section. Um, we killed Makonko. That's what the list did. The list managed to make sure Makonko is unplayable, and that's at Draco Tail. Draco Tail is no longer playable as well. So Makonko and Draco Tail are out, and literally nothing else changed. So that's frustrating. It's really frustrating to me. But yeah, that'll be it. See you tomorrow for our regularly scheduled video. Bye bye.